Hello and welcome to those of you that are watching this on the replay. And of course, you can always just go ahead and prepare to fast forward it. It always connects around 3 minutes in. So go ahead and fast forward it if you would like. I'm just going to be waiting for it to go live. And for those of you that are watching the replay, I just want to say how grateful I am to you for taking the time to be here and to receive this video. I'm super grateful. I really appreciate it. I've decided to maintain the lives instead of the pre-recorded videos for right now. I'm still putting together how I want that to look. As I'm going through the process of rebranding. I've decided on my colors. I've decided on I have a tendency to not want to maintain a specific focus, and I kind of jump around. And so I'm being very, very, very strict with maintaining my focus and how I want the brand or the brand of me to look, the colors, the format. And so I'm really, really being super accountable in that area. So when I start to post the pre-recorded videos, I want them to have not an exactly same format the whole time, but I want there to be a similar format across the board. So I'm working on getting all that together now. I already have all the colors and the fonts and stuff like that figured out. Now it's just putting them together and seeing exactly how I want everything to look and how those fit in with the lives. Right now, the lives allow me to connect with more people, which I'm really grateful for. So that is giving me an opportunity to also practice just becoming visible again. So hello and welcome, everyone. It looks like my phone's going to fall over any second, so that's why I keep fixing it. Hello and welcome to those that are joining. This is Éoaccí, and I am just super, super excited to talk about this today. Every single one of my lives tie into each other, but this one today is probably one of the most impactful applications, and it's also why I wanted to jump on here and share this live with everyone. Give me 1 second. I forgot to change the comment section, so 1 second. Just hang tight. Okay, there we go. So I've changed the comment section to subscribers, and it just keeps the comments from being quite so chaotic. So yeah, you don't have to subscribe, obviously, but if you would like to hang around and communicate, that just allows me to communicate with those that are a little bit more serious about this type of interaction and maintaining just respect on the platform. All right, you guys, so if you noticed, the title is talking about quantum hacks. Quantum hacks basically being, we talk about manifestation. And before I get started, I want to say, as always, what I'm sharing here is probably going to be something you've heard before. The reason why I'm speaking into it and I'm bringing it here is because I'm sharing it from my point of view, my perspective, how I've learned, and really how this is unfolded through my experience and what that looks like, because I've actually applied the things that I'm sharing here, and I've had real life experiences with that. So, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and we were sharing some different applications around meditation and prayer and just different approaches to manifestation and basically you can say quantum hacking. And one thing I noticed that it doesn't seem to be brought forward that much, and it's one of the things I'm going to share here with you guys, is we become so focused on what we want, what we think our future needs to look like, that we forget that the reaction that we are having to what's in our 3D right now is just as important. It is all a part of the manifestation process. It's not just about going into the meditation or the visualization, as all of those are tools that are going to support you in reaching that experience. But your reaction to your physical world right now is probably one of the most important tools in your tool belt. It's also one of the ones that I didn't give enough attention to. And so that's why I want to put it here as number one. We all carry specific emotional reactions to events in our reality. Okay. Now, these emotional responses are triggered by the relationships that we have with people, the beliefs that we have around our reality, around other people, around the collective. And one thing the way that I see this is a lot of these beliefs are not only subconscious or unconscious, but the meanings are what most people don't realize are actively manifesting for them. It's like going through your life being a byproduct of a collective program that you have no idea exists. So it's not that the government controls you, and it's not that you're being controlled, but you are under an illusion that you're somehow making a choice from free will. But the truth is that you're choosing the things that you think you need to choose. The things that you think you want are not actually what's supporting you. It's not actually what's going to offer you the experience that you think you want. Because the program, the way that you have designed your identity, or the way that your identity has been designed, is basically pulling all of this stuff in from the beliefs that were passed down from your parents, the beliefs that were passed down from your friends, the beliefs that were passed down from caregivers and other people in your reality. And so you've been carrying these beliefs and these meanings your entire life. And if you have not slowed down long enough to look at what that means for you, then you basically go through life, and I call it parroting, which means you're just repeating what you've heard. You're repeating what you think you should repeat, or you're repeating information for the sake of it. But there's no awareness of why. A lot of times, like, obviously, I think every single one of us want more money, right? We want to live a more financially stable life. We want to live in a more abundant state. But 99% or 98% of people are wanting that because they're afraid that they'll never have enough, or they want that because they want to somehow avoid scarcity. They want to escape lack. Abundance isn't accessed. Money, none of the things that are connected to wealth and finances and abundance. Obviously, yes, you can access those things from fear because people do it every day. But that is where the collective frequency has existed for so long. So it's like the way that I see this is I'm either being pulled into the collective fear, or I pull myself out of it. I decide that I am the frequency of love and abundance and wealth, and then everything comes to me, where my frequency becomes so stable, so magnetic, so powerful. I am the God creator of my reality. I am the God creator of my universe. I am not God, but I am the God creator of my universe, which means that if I want everything to come to me with ease, I need to be aware of the meanings that I have assigned to multiple areas of my life. And especially when it comes to money, or when it comes to relationships, even just when it comes to how I approach people in general. If deep down I am still operating from a place of unworthiness, or I'm so afraid that I will never have love that I'm so desperately seeking love. Just like I'm so afraid that I'll never have enough money, so I'm desperately seeking to have more money. That is a way that you can go. But if you want to allow everything, basically collapse time and connect to all parallel versions of you, first and foremost, you need to acknowledge where that emotional charge is and why. If not, it's always going to be running in the background as a program, and it's going to be pulling you towards something that you think you want, but that you haven't slowed down long enough to observe why. Because that thing that you think you want could be coming from a position of, well, if I don't have it, then I'm not safe. If I don't have it, then I won't survive. That isn't abundance. That's not a free state. That's not a frequency of source or spirit. That's a frequency of fear, right? So when I started to become more aware of myself throughout the day, every single day, no matter what happens, I'm responding to my reality differently. And I've spoken into this, but I'm going to consistently reinforce it because it's so powerful. It doesn't matter if I wake up at a time, like let's say I say I set my alarm clock and I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a really productive day tomorrow. I'm going to get A, B, C, and D done. And I have this whole plan of things that I'm going to do. And all of a sudden my alarm clock doesn't go off. I don't wake up in enough time. It's pouring down rain. It's storming. Maybe Bruiser hasn't been outside. Maybe my parents are in a bad mood. Maybe a client is having a really chaotic day. And all of these things seem to start to happen all at once. How I respond to each one of those events is going to determine how each one of those events leaves an imprint in my field. Now, if I want that desired reality to come to me easier, then my field needs to carry imprints of trust, of harmony, of balance. And harmony and balance is, so if I have emotions that arise and I don't react, then I am in a state of balance. Or no, I'm actually in a state of harmony. If I'm aware of all emotions, but nothing is coming through, then I'm in balance. So every single day, what I'm doing is working towards, or not working towards, I am acknowledging a consistent state of harmony and balance. I am aware of where I can get angry. I am aware of where I can get sad. I am aware of where I can get frustrated. I am aware of where I can feel urgency. I am aware of where all of these different emotions are available. And every single one of those emotions is connecting me to a parallel experience. So that emotion is a chord of experience. And if my most common reaction is frustration, anger, sadness, grief, control, then my nervous system has been imprinted with these pathways, and it's connecting me to very specific information in the field. And therefore, no matter how much I desire to experience more money, no matter how much I desire to experience a more fluid clientele base, no matter how much I desire to experience more fluidity and less fear with Bruiser, or more harmony with my parents, it doesn't matter. If my emotions are still being assigned from the meanings that I made in my childhood, then those meanings are basically connecting me to the same exact experiences. They might look a little differently, but they're always going to affect me in the same way. And one little side note I want to put down here. Events are neutral. People are neutral. Everything is neutral. In that moment, we decide, what does this mean to me? How am I going to let this affect me? And what emotion am I going to assign to the meaning that I have determined is valid? So, am I going to, I'll use a real life experience here. So whenever my clients, I've talked about this a few times, but whenever I had clients that were moving out of my field, that when we completed contracts, initially my nervous system was freaking out, like, oh my gosh, there goes your most, your highest paying clients, there goes your most consistent income. What are you going to do? How are you going to replace it? Immediately, the analytical mind is wanting solutions. It's wanting to get things figured out. It's wanting to understand what comes next. It needs to problem solve because that's its job. However, trying to solve the problem of my future is not going to allow me to experience the quote unquote future that I have been consistently dedicating myself to embodying. And what that means is that because I know I have always made it mean that if I have a lot of clients, I'm doing really good. If I have less clients, I'm not doing as well. That's the meaning. This means that I am not a good coach. This means that I'm not a good practitioner. This means that I'm not a good teacher. This means that I'm not going to be financially well off. This means that I'm going to financially struggle. All of those different meanings have been assigned previously to an experience like that, which also means that I would be desperately trying to hold on to people for fear that if they left, it would somehow negatively impact my financial state, my relationships. It would negatively impact my experience, just across the board, really. So as this last wave was moving out and I knew there was a transition happening, I was like, okay, so how do I want the field to remember this experience? What is the impression I want to leave? If I am a multimillionaire, then I'm not worried about people moving out of my field. I'm not anxious about people moving into my field, because it has nothing to do with people moving in or out. That's not how I choose to be affected anymore. What that means is I'm moving out of this cause and effect state where I am always affected by what happens, instead of determining that I am the causation and therefore I determine how I want to feel and be affected by the situation. So when I am in control of my emotions, I'm in control of the field. And so that is because those emotions, those meanings, every single meaning carries an emotional attachment. And no matter how much you may want to manifest something differently, if you still have an emotional attachment to a meaning that you are unaware of, you will always pull that meaning back into you, and you will revisit it again and again and again. It's not punishment. It's simply an opportunity to gain greater clarity as to why this lesson keeps appearing. Now, something I'm a little bit on the fence about right now is I've done a lot of really deep inner work, and I've gone through the inventories of my life. I've reached out, I've done gratitude journaling in terms of like the role I played in people's lives, my exes, my family, friendships that I'm no longer a part of. And I've sat down and I've done the inventory, and I've wrote down the character defects. And I've really taken that responsibility of the role that I played, not just what they did to me, not just what I made it mean about them, but what did it mean about me? Because that gave me an opportunity to have a better understanding of the identity that I embody. And you manifest everything based on your identity. If you're not familiar with your identity, then you're not going to be able to escape it no matter how much you try. And of course, you don't want to escape it. You want to shift consciously, intentionally, and responsibly. So because of the awareness around the identity, I was able to start seeing, I had all the information, you guys. I've always known that people didn't affect me. Like, I've always known it conceptually. I've always known that I am the one that chooses if I want to be upset, or I'm the one that chooses if I want to be mad, or if I've known that. But it didn't fix the reaction. What started to change the reactivity within me on a cellular level is not running from the things that live actively in my nervous system as an emotional charge. So I was previously trying so desperately to change things that I was uncomfortable experiencing, that I wasn't giving them time to simply just be felt. And this is another one of those tools that's going to be really powerful. Number one, always observing your emotional state, determining consciously and intentionally how you want to emotionally connect to an experience. And number two is, when you consistently choose a different emotional state, it's practicing it day in and day out, no matter what happens. You're going to start becoming more and more aware of who your identity really is when you choose this path. And a lot of times people don't like that. They don't like seeing themselves for who they are. And what I mean by who you are is who this identity is, the meanings that they've assigned throughout their lives. the beliefs that they carry. A lot of times we only want to see parts of ourselves. We don't want to see all of ourselves. And in terms of like hacking the quantum wide open, emotions is going to be the gateway. It always will be. One of the things I see consistently in this line of work, and I see this in comments on social media, I see this on YouTube, I see people receive these types of videos, but the questions are always the same. Like, I know what you're saying, but how do I apply it? And that's why I'm bringing this forward right here, is every single day, every single situation, you determine what you are going to feel. Now, every single day you can start with a morning meditation and visualization. You guys have heard me talk about the mind movies. Now, I've also spoken with some people that seem to feel like the mind movies are a bit complicated because they don't know what to visualize, or they feel like their mind is wanting to control what is happening too much. The trick about going into the visualization is to simply give yourself an opportunity to not take it so seriously. You're playing and you're just simply practicing. There's no scorecard. When you go into that type of practice and you're carrying this belief that you can somehow get it wrong, then you're going to move through that experience with those different beliefs, those different layers that think, I can't do this. This is too complicated. This isn't going to work. Because there's a belief that there's actually a wrong way to do it, which means if you believe that there's a wrong way, then you have a plethora of thoughts that support that give you validation in that belief. So go into it playfully. Just go into it practicing. That's all. You don't have to prepare for what you're going to see. We all have experiences in our lives where we have lived joyfully, where we've lived happily, where we've lived peacefully, where we've lived in love and compassion. We just don't focus on those as much. We tend to not focus on the play. We tend to focus on the seriousness, the solutions, the problem solving. We tend to focus on how we think we need to show up, instead of just showing up, going into it, allowing it to be an experience and not being so serious about it. So go into it playfully. Now, one of the things I used to believe is that my frequency needed to be super high vibe in order to access a powerful manifestation. I no longer believe that. It's not true. In some of the most powerful moments recently, where my reality, my 3D has been showing me that it's not happening, I've had my nervous system and my mind and my these meanings and these beliefs that I've been so accustomed to, I've had them come to the surface, and they've been screaming like, see, it's not really happening. It's not really working. You're not doing a good job. You're not worthy. You're not important. Nobody listens. Nobody pays attention. You're not doing it right. Like, all the things come up. And I just listen. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, right. And when those thoughts and those feelings and the emotions and the urgency and the fear and the sadness and the grief and the frustration, when all of that starts rising, it's coming from my hips, it's coming from my womb, it's coming from my core, where for the longest time I've pushed it down and I've tried to avoid it. I don't avoid it anymore. I allow it to come up and I simply listen. And I simply acknowledge, I don't choose to think that way anymore. I don't choose to believe that way anymore. And as soon as I acknowledge it, I choose what I choose to be true right now. So not only have I determined that I'm going to approach my day-to-day life with gratitude, with appreciation, with acceptance, with compassion, with love, but anytime anything surfaces that wants to fight against that, I simply just acknowledge it, I listen to it, and then I reinforce the joy, the appreciation, the gratitude. I'm constantly reinforcing it because my 3D is not real. It's a hallucination. And that hallucination is simply like, okay, so if my identity has been consistently built on anger, frustration, unworthiness, lack, scarcity, judgment, shame, all of those things, if that's the way my identity most commonly identifies, then you can imagine your physical body as like this central force field. And those energies are very dense. They do not reach spirit, and spirit is where your most magnetic return on investment comes from. And so if you are if you're first and foremost, if your brain waves are not syncing up, if you're transmitting a frequency of doubt, mistrust, unworthiness, if you're self-doubting all the time, self-doubt isn't a frequency that carries, it's like a broken record. Self-doubt is, the universe doesn't know if you really want that. The field doesn't know if you really want what you say you want, because every single time the opposition or the contrast appears, you don't trust that it's already working out. And so that self-doubt is simply just translating to the field that I don't want it. And not even that I don't want it, that I don't accept it. Because want automatically pushes everything away anyways. Whatever you want, you're already you're basically sending the signal that it's not available to me. I know we hear it all the time, but living as if you already have it is so important. If you already had the physical health, then you would not be worrying about getting sick. If you already had the physical physique, you would not be constantly freaking out over eating something that's not on your foods that love me list. You know, if you were a millionaire, you would not be worried about the money that's in your bank account or the lack thereof. So every single day you speak, you think, you feel, you live from the place that you want the field to reinforce for you. Yes, I know it's challenging. I hear that all the time. Again, this is also something I see across the field and people in comments and other creators saying, well, you know, that's easy to say when you're not sitting there with zero or negative, or you're in debt, or you can't buy food. You're right. You're right. But what you do with the contrast determines how long you stay in that specific experience of your reality. If you want to experience something differently, you don't focus on what you don't have, you focus on what you do have. And what I noticed, this one was really powerful. Speaking of focusing what I do have, I'm so used to a specific reality with Bruiser, as you guys hear me mention, where he's terrified to go outside. He doesn't want to go use the bathroom because he's terrified of being outside. It's like he's become terrified, like almost like the sky is going to fall in on him. So my automatic response when my mom would ask me, so did Bruiser go out last night? Did Bruiser did he go to the bathroom? Automatically, without thinking about it, my response would be, no, he didn't. I was being honest, but I wasn't being truthful. And I want to share with you why. If I want to experience him completely differently, showing up, doing the things that I know will also support him in the long run, when that question is asked, my response has to be different. Because if I'm going to maintain the old version, then I'm going to maintain the old answer. So most people say, but that's a lie. It's only a lie if I don't choose to reinforce the new identity. To the new identity, it's true. To the old identity, it's a lie. The new identity has a different version of truth than the old identity does. So speaking like the new identity is absolutely necessary, because if I speak from the old identity, I'm going to attract the same frequential interaction. So if I tell my mom no, then the worry, the concern, the control, her own emotional need to control comes in. That doesn't support me moving out of that identity. I'm not blaming her. It's not her fault. It's not anyone's fault. But if I want interactions, if I want exchanges that further reinforce that new identity, then I have to speak a different truth. So I don't talk like I don't have money. I don't talk like Bruiser hasn't been outside. I don't talk like I lack clients. I don't talk like I lack anything. I speak as if I have everything and everything's working out perfectly. My health is perfect. Bruiser's health is perfect. My parents' health is perfect. I have tons of money in the bank because I do. And if I'm wanting to speed all of this up, I know a lot of times we go into manifestation techniques. Most of the time people do meditation and visualization, but then every single day going throughout their day, they're still reacting to the same thing. They're still chasing after the same things, and they're not shifting anything in their day-to-day interactions. So going into meditation, going into visualization, going into prayer is fantastic, and it's only going to speed things up. But the state you decide to be in every single moment of every single day is your most powerful foundation. So choose to build your foundation on rock instead of sand, as my mentors would say. Choose every single day to live out that version. And then, so for me, I choose every single day. My emotional response is different. This collapses time. Time is basically imprints of emotional identity. So however I have most commonly emotionally responded and reacted to those events in my life determines how the following events will unfold. So if I choose to respond differently to the events, remember, they're neutral. I'm now assigning a different meaning. I'm now assigning a different emotional response. Therefore, I'm now connecting to multiple different versions of myself across time and space. I am attracting the experiences from parallel realities. And I can literally pull anything in, and I can literally learn anything from any version of myself that I desire. All I have to do is sit down and put my attention towards that. Now, that is something that's a little bit of a branch on what I'm sharing here today. There is a practice where you can go in and connect to any parallel version of yourself, and quite literally learn anything that you want to learn from any version of yourself. And that's because every version of you exists. The version of you that you're living right now is a byproduct of your choices. And your choices, we talk about karma. Karma is choice-based. Your identity is a karmic representation of the pattern of choices that you have connected to throughout your life. So if you want to shift your karmic debt, then you no longer reinforce the same choice pattern. You no longer show up day in and day out doing things the same exact way. There has to be a disruption in the pattern. And a lot of times people think that they're just doing things in the physical, like, oh, I moved to a different state. Or I'm going back to school. Or, I got a certification, or I'm in a different relationship. Just because those things are different doesn't mean that you're not entering into it from the same exact identity and pattern that you've always inhabited. So when we talk about this work being internal, this is what it means. First and foremost, you have to internally decide what it is you want to experience. And be very clear on that. It's not, people make this difficult, but it's not. It's not difficult. If you say, well, I don't know what I want. I don't know what it looks like. I've never lived a luxurious lifestyle. I've never had a loving relationship. No, maybe not in the way that you think. Maybe not in this version of you that you're living through right now, because you've been so opposed to it. You've been living through a place of lack of faith in people, lack of trust in actually being able to experience those things. That will not allow you to experience it at all. However, if you determine that you already have, that it's not just possible or plausible, but that it's already happening, and you just show up every single day and give yourself to that truth, then you will experience it. Because as I've mentioned this in one of my most recent lives, that I might not have had I might not have seen in my old identity $1 million in my bank account. but I have had $1 million pass through my hands. I have experienced $1 million in that identity. So I carry that realization and that truth with me, and I go into my mind movies and I envision the money already there. I have envisioned Bruiser going outside. I have envisioned the sound of his footsteps going down the stairs. I have envisioned the conversations that I have with my mom, which are completely different than they are now. I have envisioned the sound, the smell, and I've talked about this. I engross my senses into everything. And I'm living in the version that I choose right now. My 3D doesn't matter. My 3D is not true. My 3D is simply just a slower representation of what my inner world is tuned into. You're dialed into a very specific channel, you guys. And that channel is carrying a lot of information, and 99% of the times we're not even aware of the majority. And technically it's kind of impossible to be, because the subconscious is only gonna, the subconscious reference point is already blocking out about 84% of it. And that's just simply the way that we are wired. So remember, every event is neutral. If you want to hack into the quantum and you want to influence and speed up your results, you determine every single day how you're going to respond, no matter what happens. And I'm not talking about like false high vibe. No, you're not avoiding the contrast. The contrast is exceptionally important. And that's another thing. There are no bad experiences. There's no bad experience in life. There's contrast. That's it. There's contrast, and then there's clarity. So contrast is when things feel like they're really challenging and really difficult, and things are just not going right. And that's because if we believe that there is a bad or wrong or imperfect way of living, then we're going to have an experience that is based on those beliefs, the way that we've assigned that meaning. Now, if I choose to believe that every event is neutral, and every single event, I am the one that decides. I determine. I am no longer operating on a set of programs that are controlling the event's experience through me, but I become the conscious creator that determines what I want that experience to feel like, what I want that event to be like, what is the meaning of this event to me. Bruiser doesn't go outside. Is that something like, that's not even true? Of course he goes outside. Is he going outside right this second? No, but he always goes outside. He always goes to the bathroom. So you see, when I was always saying he never goes outside, that was exactly what I was reinforcing. If somebody asked me, did he go outside? And I say no, I'm constantly reinforcing. So I shifted and I just flipped everything on its head. I start envisioning him going outside. I start remembering every single moment where he has gone outside. I start feeling what it feels like to be in that moment, in that experience. And I'm grateful and I'm loving and I'm playful and I'm having fun. And most importantly, I am compassionate. Compassion was something that was really missing in my life, and I've realized that. I am compassionate, which means that it doesn't matter if an opposing view wants to challenge where I'm at. I completely get it. I understand. I get it, and I honor it. I just choose not to believe it. I am compassionate when I see Bruiser not wanting to, maybe if I feel that impulse and that urgency and that need for him to do something, and in that moment he's not wanting to, it's okay, because nothing bad's happening. It's just an impulse. It's my nervous system relaying familiar information based on the way that I have been consistently programmed. And I realized where I got it from. My mom. When I was having that interaction with her and she was asking about Bruiser, all the same thoughts were coming out of her mouth that I have had. And I realized that my identity has been so consistently patterned after what I've learned, the behaviors, the thought patterns, the speech patterns, the emotional patterns. All the same things have followed my mom and my dad my entire life. I have been patterning people my entire life. We all have. And so instead of patterning everyone else, I am now determining the pattern. And that's where everything is shifting. I am no longer seeking to prove that I can. I'm simply playing in the field, and I'm learning that there's no consequence other than love, joy, peace, acceptance, compassion. Like, that's the only consequence I choose now. I don't choose a consequence of fear. I don't choose a consequence of shame. I don't choose a consequence of judgment. It doesn't mean that I avoid them. It means that I don't give my attention consistently to them. So a lot of times I feel that, at least I know in my experience, people would try to hack the quantum by some massively, like some intense meditation, some high vibe experience, going to medicine ceremonies and retreats, and like really trying hard to raise the vibration of the collective and raise the vibration of consciousness, and all those things that the new age spirituality gets really caught up in. It's a whole bunch of nothing. And meaning that people go into those situations trying so desperately to change things because they think that they need to save people. They think that they need to save the collective. They need to save the planet. They need to save others. They need to save their family line. Like, a lot of people go into this. I know I did. I needed to save my lineage. I needed to, rescue my ancestors from their past lives. No, there's nothing and no one to save. There's simply just remembering that until you take conscious control of where your attention goes, you are asleep. And no matter how much you play in the new age spiritual terminology, it does not mean that you have remembered the power that you hold to create from within the field. And not even create, no, to manifest and magnetize a different channel. And first, what you're going to notice is, no matter what event, no matter what situation, there's no reaction. It doesn't mean you don't feel the emotions. As you start to progress in the embodiment of a new identity or a different channel, once you're tuning yourself to a different radio frequency, you broadcast a wider range. And as you're broadcasting a wider range, you're pulling more into your field. Pulling more into your field means you're receiving more at one time. And there's going to be, it's going to seem like nothing is happening. It's going to seem like it's not working. That's the calm before the storm. That's the pause. That's where things are rearranging. That's where you're consistently, it's layered, like baking a cake, it's layered. You have to consistently add the ingredients before the finished product can emerge. And just because you have the ingredients to bake the cake, you don't expect the cake to just all of a sudden get baked just because you have the ingredients and you just want it, right? You take the steps necessary, putting the effort in, putting the attention, following the recipe or creating your own, whatever, but you're doing what's necessary to create the final product. And that's what happens here with you. And if you can take in as much information, you can listen to a ton of books, but if every single day you're not actually applying yourself, if you're not being responsible with your emotions, none of that's going to matter. Because you can manifest from force. You can have glimmers that come through. Basically, it's like it's a breakaway experience where there's been so much effort and force put against the manifestation that it breaks and it whooshes in. But that requires a lot of effort. And it's like you have to be heavily focused on one specific thing, and then you're basically just reinforcing from an identity that can't maintain that consistently over time. Basically, you're trying to take an identity that's terrified of a loving relationship and forcing it to appear. Taking an identity that is terrified of responsibility and yet forcing the opportunities, forcing the job, forcing the money to appear. If you're terrified, if you're afraid, if you're in fear, if you're in fight or flight, you're still manifesting. And you can have experiences and opportunities show up. But long-term maintenance for that would be impossible, because that identity's channel, its frequency, it's just simply not attuned to maintain that. And so every single day you show up and you give a different version of information to the field. You give the information of love and acceptance and compassion and peace and prosperity from a place of acknowledging how prosperous you are. You can look around you, even if you're homeless. I've been homeless. You can look around you and still see prosperity. Can you see it without judgment? Can you see it without comparison? Can you see it without jealousy? Because what other people have versus what you have is not something that, it's not something that's out of your reach. It's something that your identity is asking you, how willing are you to take the steps necessary to receive that version of yourself? So every single day, no matter what, how you respond to the most challenging parts of your life is going to determine how this version of you is able to consistently manifest itself through the quantum. Like I said, there are other practices that you can add. There are tools like I do the visuals, the mind movies, the meditations. But one of the things, and I'll say this as I'm beginning to close this out, one of the things that I hear a lot of times when it comes to manifestation or meditation, is that people go into the meditation trying to reach a certain state. Your brainwave state will naturally sync up the more relaxed you are. So all that's really required of you when you go in there is just to experience relaxation. When you're relaxed, your brainwave syncs and begins to connect you to different activity levels of your neurons that you would not normally be in your day-to-day analytical way of addressing life, would not normally be accessing. Those transmitters are what is receiving and transmitting the information differently. It doesn't require a lot of effort. You simply just relax yourself into a deep state of receiving. And from there, you're simply, like I said, you have memories that live through you. Even in parallel lives, you have memories that exist. You've already done the thing. You've already lived the experience. You know what joy feels like. You don't have to force it. And if you're not showing up every single day choosing joy, it's going to feel impossible. It's going to feel like you just can't reach that state. It's going to feel so out of reach for you, because every single day you're still looking for some modality. You're still chasing after something to give that state to you. You're still expecting things to show up and do the work for you. The work happens in the most mundane experiences. The work happens every single day. How you, like, when you're asked to do something, like say your partner asks you to do the dishes, or your mom asks you to do the dishes. How do you respond to that? Do you fight back? Do you feel frustrated? Do you feel like, oh my gosh, now's not the best time, I'm not feeling the best, how dare you ask me that, or I've got more important things to do? Or that right there is a beautiful testimony to how you become an embodied version of someone that lives in a state of consistent abundance. If someone can ask something of you and you simply just say yes, without the fight, without the judgment, without the agenda, when you just simply embrace another person for who they are, where they are, what they're saying, what they're sharing, what they're asking, you realize they're not asking anything of you. They're not asking the world of you. They're asking a moment. And if you want to even say they're asking something of you, they're asking a moment. And that moment is asking you, how will you respond? And every single time you respond with compassion, you are expanding your field, and your frequency begins to transmit to the universal architect that, okay, this person's, this soul is legit. This soul is maintaining. You know, this human being is ready for an upgrade, and your field is the representation of how much you can hold. And the more that you brought in the field, the more that you are able to hold more. Can you hold compassion in the most assumingly trying times? Can you let what's happening in the world just happen without needing to constantly prove that you know what's happening? You know, I used to get so caught up in trying to tell, like, I remember talking about the collective frequency. Like, oh, the collective shifting and the collective emotional temperature and the collective this and the collective that. Fuck the collective. Seriously, you guys, it's not about the collective. It's about you. You are the collective collapsed into individual expression. And if you are not aware and focused on your individual expression right now, then it doesn't matter. None of it really matters. But when the only thing that you can consistently talk about is what's happening in the collective, you're avoiding yourself. You're not talking, or your talking points about yourself are refined in a way to make your presentation of self be observed in a very specific way. Like you want to make sure everyone is very happy with your image. You want to make sure everyone is accepting of your image. Let go of the image. It's going to be the greatest gift you give yourself. Let go of the image, because whoever you're wanting to accept your image right now, those people that you want to rush in and accept you, the people that you want to please, those are not going to be the same people, more than likely, that are going to be in your field from this new identity. So give yourself permission to respond differently, to show up every single day. And literally, it's hacking. It's hacking. No matter, you don't require any overly impressive modality. Just show up and respond differently, and use those modalities to support you. The mind movies for me specifically have been exceptionally powerful. 1 second, you guys. Okay, sorry, had to refresh. Okay. Responding to your reality differently is how reality responds to you differently. So if you want your reality to show up differently, you respond differently. I have literally noticed time collapsing right now. So I did start to mention that. So there's going to be a pause. There's going to be a period where it seems like nothing is happening. I mentioned in one of my previous lives that it's going to seem like things are getting really shitty, that it's not like there's going to be like this chaos, this intensity of all the things that have always triggered you. So your nervous system is basically bringing everything to the surface that you have been avoiding. And as your nervous system is bringing everything to the surface that you've been avoiding, every single time you respond differently. That is teaching your nervous system to create new pathways, so that when the information that you've always received travels down your neurological highways, the neurological highways will no longer react to the situation. They will no longer go into fight or flight. They will no longer go into the sympathetic state. They will begin to maintain a parasympathetic state, which is the exact state that you're going to be able to embody more from. So also too, you're not, we talk about regulation, a regulated nervous system. You guys, you're not trying to avoid dysregulation. You want the contrast, all of that chaos, all of that charge, all of that intensity that appears. That is your opportunity. You're not trying to avoid those things. You're not trying to not make them happen. You're choosing to respond to them differently. So ask yourself every single time, if I was in the version of me that I am working towards embodying, how would I respond? How would that version of me respond? How would that version of me show up every single day? What would their schedule look like? And play with it. It's not about being perfect. It's just about playing and having fun and laughing and giving yourself a break and letting yourself use rest and relaxation as a portal for manifestation. This is not something that requires an excess amount of effort. It really doesn't. I used to think that in order for me to manifest my desires, I needed to work really, really hard. I needed to incorporate a ton of tools, a ton of modalities. No, what I'm sharing with you here has been the key. Now, I've been focusing on one area of my life at a time. Things with Bruiser have done a 180. I mean, everything's great, even in ways that never showed up before. So I'm actually witnessing his behavior as a mirror to the behavior that I am choosing to reinforce, which is a behavior of acceptance, a behavior of compassion, which through him is feeling more safe and secure. He feels more safe and secure. His choices look differently, as does everyone's. And as I start to embody more patience, more compassion, more acceptance, where I'm just like, I love everything. Everything that happens is wonderful. I love the contrast. I embrace the contrast. It helps me to better understand where my attention has been going and where I can now shift my attention differently. So I look at my bank account. I see a 0 in my bank account. Guess what I do? I go into my mind movie. I envision, I add a 12 on there and a couple more zeros. And I live in that experience. I watch that money coming into my account. I look at the investment, the pixels on the screen, and I feel what it feels like to receive that amount of money. And I have, in the last week alone, manifested money literally out of doing nothing. So I have money coming into my account right now for literally doing nothing. So it's not, it's not $1 million yet, but I am living in that. That's on its way to me, right? It is. I'm envisioning that every single day, and how I respond to the amounts that are showing up now determine my capacity to receive that $1 million. And the $1 million for me isn't a way to escape my life. I have everything I need right now. There were 2 things in my life that carried the most emotional charge, where I felt like if I did not have them, then I wouldn't survive. And one of those has been a medication that I've been taking for like the last 7 years, and the other was Bruiser. So when my financial situation shifted and I wasn't purchasing in the same way, medication, you pay for medication, I started having some anxiety and some fear come up. Like, what am I going to do? I got to hurry up and get a job. I got to pay for this stuff. I got to be able to support Bruiser. I got to be able to, all the things. I've had support, help pour in from so many different directions because I am approaching things differently. Before, I would have seen that as, oh my gosh, now I owe these people something. They just feel sorry for me. They're just pitying me. But that's not the case. That's actually not the case at all. And by every conversation that I've had with anyone that's helped me recently, and I've also got money coming in from my own work, but from those that came in and supported me, it was basically they are in a position and they're like, I want to help. Like, I'm in a position to help. I would love to help, because I have been in that position so many times and I've done the same thing. And it's such a beautiful place to be. And I'm always in a position to help. So right now, I'm giving by showing up, by being visible, by sharing my truth, by sharing what's living through me. And I know these long form lives, we're going on, it was just 58. We're going on an hour. And I know that's a lot of time to sit and be with someone talking. So if you've hung in here for this long, thank you. What I'm sharing with you, I share it and I come on here and I spend this time because I know how impactful it has been for me to slow down and to tune in and to receive from others and to show my nervous system it's safe. That's karma. Karma is choice. It's not just doing something for someone else. This isn't for me. This is for you. How you choose to use this to support yourself determines what your karmic lineage looks like, what your karmic dynasty looks like. So, when you show up and you receive because you can, That's a frequential signal. When you show up and you simply show love and support, right? Like I go on people's pages and I just automatically give them a like, and I automatically I'm always just like giving out the support and the love. I used to do it to get noticed. Now I just do it because it feels good to see other people winning. When you start to translate your behaviors into a different experience of yourself, someone that's living in abundance isn't afraid of loving and supporting others. I used to be afraid of seeing other people be successful because I was afraid that would take away from my success. Now, I want to support everyone in their success. I want to support everyone in their endeavors. I want to show I don't want to show everyone, no. I want to show my nervous system that I can love, support, and honor what everyone else is doing, and it is in no way treading on my own life. It is in no way impeding me or preventing me from being successful. That I can celebrate and support what another person is doing, even if I don't carry the same belief, even if I don't practice in that way. I can simply love the fact that they're showing up and giving all of themselves, no matter what that is. That was actually a challenge for me, because in that know-it-all, prideful identity, I found it felt difficult at first to support someone, quote unquote support, to show up and honor what someone else was sharing because it wasn't aligned to my views. But I realized my views were also aligned to jealousy and pride and greed and neediness and unworthiness. And because of that, it was almost like I kept my attention on a very specific way of support. And now it's like, no, I just show up and I'm loving that everyone is following through with their dreams and helping people in the only way that they know how. At the same time, it's worth recognizing for anyone that's listening to this, if you're, a lot of times we go into self-development work, we go into spirituality, we go into these practices in an attempt to make our way, in an attempt to be seen as someone that's trustworthy. Like, we want to work with people. There's a high that comes with working with people. And I want to share that. There is a rush that our nervous system gets for giving care and acting from the Savior. When you're no longer showing up and doing it for others, that's when the real test begins. Because when you're not doing it for others, that rush isn't there to pull you into the experience. You're showing up and you're doing it because you know that this is absolutely a choice that you need to follow through with to reinforce the identity from a different behavioral, emotional, mental state. And when you're doing it from that place and you're no longer just chasing the high of being able to show everyone else that you're helping other people and like, oh, look what I'm doing in my sessions, and oh, look what I'm doing here, and look at what, look. The visuals and the looky-loos and the the glitters and the I call it the shiny things. When there's a lot of shiny, there's not usually as much substance, which means that there's a lot of really impressive, look what I can do. I'm not demeaning that in any way. I know that place so well, and I'm still learning how to translate my service and my offerings so that I'm not representing myself in that way. That's what the visibility here is about. It's about representing myself from a place of applied truth, what I'm practicing, what I'm doing, but also having, having the schooling and the certifications to back it, because I have coaching certifications and neuropsychology certifications. So there are things that I have to back it, but I do really and firmly believe, especially after going through those certifications, my life experience trumps every bit of it. I mean, all of that information is great. It's wonderful to have it there to support, but all in all, what I've learned through what I've applied will always be the most profound and most valuable gold. I mean, literally, that's the substance. That's the substance. And I will say this, okay, and in closing, I've worked with many teachers. I've worked I've applied, teachers directly, indirectly, through books, through teachings, through social media platforms, and then through my own mentors. I have had mentors that have literally come straight out of their parents' home into school, into basically having investments from bank, investments from credit cards, investments from parents, and then boom, they got rich. Or they basically had a foundation of money and were able to build upon that, which is impressive, which is amazing. But really, up until this year, I did not have mentors that have been through the trenches. They all had a really pretty good life, like pretty balanced. They worked hard, they worked their asses off, no doubt about it. But I don't want to learn from someone that's just worked their ass off. I want to learn from someone that's been there, that's been in the trenches, that's really experienced the contrast of life, because I've experienced the contrast of life. And the way that I'm going to be able to carry the teaching with me is, do you actually know what the fuck you're talking about? Like, have you actually applied it? Have you actually been through a deep contrast in your life and you've taken this information that you're passing on to others? Have you actually applied it? Or are you just collecting a bunch of information and talking about it? I'm not saying that I can't learn from everyone, because I do. I learn from those that are financially successful, even if they've not had a bunch of contrast, because they've definitely taken responsibility in ways that maybe I haven't. But what I'm also learning, again, right now about financial wealth is that it's really coming from the application of my approach to life. So money's already coming in, and I don't have a new job. I don't have things. Really, the only thing that's changed is my approach. So now, obviously, that's a transition point. The real surplus of my finances is coming from how I maintain where I'm at right now. And that's beginning with my state first and foremost, and then the action I take in my day-to-day life and how I offer myself through my business or through my presentation. But most importantly, who am I when I am presenting myself? It goes far beyond an image. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys today. I thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate always your time and your attention. Like I said, I know long form is not for everyone, but even if only 1 or 2 people receive this message today, then I know an impact has been made. It only takes one person. Like, it literally, if you can receive a message like this and start applying it right now, your life is going to start changing. Just don't. If you're like me, if it wasn't showing up immediately, the self-doubt kicked in. The self-doubt is, again, just want to remind you that self-doubt is going to send a signal that you're not really ready to receive the things you say, that you're constantly reinforcing and saying that you are. So, doesn't mean you avoid self-doubt. It just means recognize when it's showing up. That's just this patterning looking for safety. And this new reality is going to feel unsafe because it's not something you are in the 3D experiencing every single day yet. That's why you have to experience it internally. You have to go internal. You have to go inside. You have to experience the reality there first, consistently, day in and day out, and then show up in your 3D responding as if it's already happening. And if you have a reaction, it's okay. Just reset yourself and move on. It's no big deal. Don't beat yourself up. All right, you guys, thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. I love you. If this video has served you and supported you in any way, or if you just like to build up some good karma, go ahead and hit the like and the subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next live. If anyone is interested in working with me one-on-one, my one-on-ones are open now, and I am taking in clients. I do have limited spaces for that. So if you are interested, please reach out and let me know. You can reach me at the email in the description. If you're following me on Instagram, you can reach out to me there as well. And until next time.